Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for episode 137 of the MeepleCore Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple, and on this episode, I am talking about Arena for the Gods, Cascadia, and Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria, and much more. Alexa, ask a random question.
Here's a question for you. What's your best childhood memory?
Best childhood memory. Actually, I have quite a bit of these. Some of them revolving around playing Dungeons and Dragons in my aunt's basement, which was really awesome. We started off by playing Hero Quest, quickly evolved that after a couple of months of just making up rules and such to make it a more of a D&D storytelling experience rather than just playing Hero Quest. We adapted that into basically D&D second edition. Then we obtained all the rule books, or at least my older cousin did for his birthday, I believe it was. He read them all. Then we completely converted our characters, I guess arbitrarily to a degree, into D&D second edition characters, a couple of years later, whenever third edition came out, which I thought was like 99 or 2000. This was more like 2003, wasn't it? When it did third edition. I don't quite remember, but that was, when we switched over to third edition and we played that for a while. So really, really cool memories. We played that campaign for many, many years. So that's my biggest, probably one I can think of without really sitting back and kind of analyzing and remembering things. That's just the first thing that pops on the top of my mind because it was such a, impacting, time frame in my life. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. Well, anyway, as you see, it's me again, just the voice of Tim the Metal Meeple. And, we are going to get back to having, George and Matt really soon. Matt actually was going to join me on this episode, but we have a math trade / swap con, going on here in Louisville, Kentucky on Saturday. And I didn't tell him in enough time. So he had a few days to really get prepared and to list his games and price them out and things like that. So his option was to do the podcast or go to that just based on the past couple of days. So he chose to spend this time to get ready for that because he has so many games that he needs to get rid of to have space in his basement. But we'll talk about that when he's on next time, but he will be joining us probably for a couple of episodes, maybe in a row. For sure. I think he's going to end up jumping on every other one since we play in person every other week. He'll be at those. And so he will be on the episodes that follow in-person gaming. So he can talk about stuff he actually was a part of rather than just sit back and be like, that game sounds cool, George and Tim. I wish I was going to play it. So anyway, I haven't been up to much since. I've been doing a lot of things, but nothing like not a whole lot of individual items. Final Fantasy 14 is still going strong. I'm really enjoying that. Between last episode and now, it was mostly getting my kid ready for kindergarten. He just started this week and that's been really fun. I'm glad he's having a lot of positive feelings about it. He gets home and we pick him up and stuff, but when he jumps in the car, he's like, kindergarten rocks. So it's super exciting. I really thought that he was going to enjoy this, even though he was nervous about it. Very, very cool. Anyway, we're going to jump right into it with 3 games for this episode. Before we do that, obviously, I'm going to plug our Humble Bundle partner link. If you go to MeepleCore.com, click on our Humble Bundle partner link, you can help support the show by buying bundles of games, software, books, all kinds of cool things. And we get a little bit of kickback from that. It costs you nothing and it helps charity and all kinds of things at the same time. So I would really appreciate it if you could help us out. But better than that, honestly, I would love for you guys to go and check any social media or podcast platform that you listen to us on and give us a review. That is going to by far help us the best. I don't care about making money. Actually, the whole reason I do Humble Bundle is because I think it's such a cool thing and I'm telling so many people about it. And anything we do actually make off that goes straight back into the podcast in the form of equipment. So I don't care if I make money in gaming at all. I do this for fun. but Humble Bundle is just massively awesome. I've used it for many, many years, probably almost since it came out. And that's the only reason I signed up as an affiliate for that, because it's so fun and it's such a good cause. So if you want to really and truly help us out, I really beg you to go leave us a review. I'm not even asking for 5 stars. I want your honest review. Hopefully you really like the show if you're still listening to this, obviously. But you can give reviews and send us emails at MeepleCore@gmail.com. That is actually what I would really prefer you to do. Humble Bundle is just a thing I like to talk about and promote. So on this episode, we have 3 games. We have Arena for the Gods, Cascadia, and Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. First up, we're talking about a small little arena combat game called Arena for the Gods. There is a colon between those, so it's Arena for the Gods. This is published by IELLO in 2017, and it's for 2 to 6 players. The designer is Maxime Romberg, and the artist is Paul Mafian. And this is basically a game where you're going to get into an arena and beat each other to death, or at least one person to death, because the game actually plays until one player dies, and whoever has the most health left is the winner. And all the health is actually hidden behind your player screen. So not to go over every rule, but basically what you're going to do, there are 4 different types of cards. There's red, yellow, blue, and green cards. They are basically like weapons, magic ability, like a mount and something else. I don't remember. But so like the red ones are weapons. And what you're going to do is, this is how you begin the game. You will flip out a card per player. Everybody starts with 20 life. And then you're going to auction off a one-time blind auction on who gets to pick first. So everybody will put so many health tokens in their hand, hold it out above the board, and release, or, reveal. And whoever bid the most gets first pick among the weapons, because not every card is actually balanced. Some of them are slightly better than the others, but you're going to pay life that is critical to winning the game in order to get these better weapons. Now, when I say better, the power scale is maybe like a 1, 2, or 3, or like maybe, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. And most of them are like a 2 and a 3. Some of them are like a 1, and some of them are 4, but those are almost like a meta, like it's good, but maybe, for new players, it's really good. Maybe the other ones are kind of better, or maybe for your gaming group, they just tend to do really well against the play styles of your group. So not trying to do any kind of reviewing right now, but you will draft those. If there's any ties, what happens is you can break those ties among the tied players. Like, well, if you and I tied, I might want this thing and you might want this card. And so we'll just take those cards. But if we tied and we both want the same card, we have to kind of add another card in and randomize it and then give it to those players. So there's a way to get through it. It's not really that long. You will do this for all 4 card types. So everybody wound up with 4 cards that make up their character, because the character standee that you use for the game doesn't actually have inherent abilities or anything like that. When you are done with that, then you'll do a scenario. You can choose, the scenarios are basically just map setups based on the player counts and how long of a game you want. The shorter the game, the smaller and more congested the map is, because you'll use these tokens and columns and stuff to kind of block off a section of the board. It's like this hexagon grid in a circle format, right? Because it's more like a coliseum. Anyway, once everybody is set up, you will begin on one of the edge hexes around this coliseum, and then you will start. One player is going to go, and this is a dice game where you're going to roll 7 dice. There's 4 different symbols. 2 of them show up twice, I believe. And once you roll them, then you're going to spend those on the 4 basic actions and the actions on your cards, because each of those cards is basically an action that only you can take. And these actions are pretty simple. The basic ones are, you can, I think, hit somebody for point damage and push them. You can hit one person that's adjacent to you for point damage. You can move a space, and then you can cast one that allows you to do like a magic bolt that hits one person anywhere on the board. But that one's the hardest one of the basic ones to pull off. Once you take your turn, the other stuff you can do is your character abilities on your 4 cards that you drafted, and those require specific dice as well. Maybe there'll be like a sword and a shield to do this one, or this one actually will shoot in a straight line. All the ranged combat in the game is like straight lines, and you have to have visibility, line of sight. So it can't be like on the other side of one of the columns or terrain features or other players' characters. So in a straight line, if you could shoot somebody, you do. And maybe some of these abilities will allow you to push. And when you push, if they get pushed into a wall or a spiky column or one of these like little spike traps on the ground, they'll end up taking a point of damage as well. Or you can push them into another player and then both of those players take damage. So that's like the reason you want to push. Some of the abilities will actually cause exhaustion tokens, I believe they're called, that you get. We just call them minus dice tokens, because basically that's what it does. On your start of your turn, if you have like 2 of these tokens, these exhaustion tokens or stun tokens, you will subtract that many dice from your pool for that turn. And there's other things on the board too. There's like these little pools of healing that will have like 5 health tokens on it. And when you walk onto it, you get to take one of those health tokens. And every time you step on it, even if you move back and forth, you can grab those tokens. Those only last so long, obviously. And on your turn, you're going to be spending all your dice trying to do things to do damage or whatnot. And eventually somebody's going to be like, all right, that was my last life. I die. Whoever has the most is the winner. I believe if you tie, you share the victory, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. So what I think about this game is that it's a very fun arena style combat. It is very casual. I don't think you can go into this thinking, oh, here's all kinds of strategy. You almost really just begin your turn saying, okay, I'm just going to do this stuff. You do need to talk, I think, as a group on who's been hit the most, because if somebody is sitting off to the side, just kind of hiding behind some stuff, not taking part in any of the combat, they're not getting hit. And you have to be like, hey, let's back off on this player because they've been hit a lot, man. And this person over here is just watching the combat happen and they have more health than us because the person we've been tag teaming is hitting us. So now we know all 3 of us is below this person, right? There's a cool amount of conversation that needs to happen, which is really odd for a arena style kill everybody in your path combat. It kind of breaks the theme. I'm over here bleeding. It's like, no, wait, let's kill him last. Let's kill him after we go beat up this guy. Kind of neat, but whatever. I mean, game turns, it works out pretty well. I think some people don't like that your health is hidden. I think that's actually pretty important because you can't mathematically team up with somebody and get them really far down, everybody else equally. And I don't know, it just would seem cheesy if you had to announce your life or have that visible. Anyway, I do like that. That is a really cool aspect. And it really does stop everybody from picking on one character, right? Not everybody is going to just focus on one person and just blast them down and get them out of the combat because there's no player elimination. You don't want to do that, even though that would be the kind of natural response to a lot of players playing a game in an arena free-for-all type of combat. Now, the game does have teams and it has like an all v1 style variant that you can pick. And as a matter of fact, there is another variant in the book that all the characters start with a pre-generated 4 cards for your character. And that is pretty nice that it's in there because it skips the whole setup if you want to get past that. And 2, it allows one other thing, which is people don't really know what the cards are worth. Like, how do I know how powerful that is? Especially if the player hasn't played the game that much before. So what we did was in the variant in the book where you start with the 4 cards, you have 20 hit points and you instead start with 12 with that variant. So they're saying 2 points each card, give or take. I mean, averaged out, right? Maybe one of them is 3, one of them is 1 and the other 2 are 2 or whatever. But the point is 8 of your life is gone and you have 4 cards. So, that equals out to 2 per card. And that's why I'm saying to new players, think about it like this. If it looks okay, it's probably 2 points. If it looks a little bit powerful, it's 3. Or you can just, bid 0 and just kind of get whatever comes to you, right? Because maybe all 4 of them are pretty equal and you don't care which one you end up with. I think that is a really cool thing. I think that the bidding is only a problem with newer players because they just don't understand what the baseline is and they haven't got the idea of the game and things like that, which is, that's considerate. I get that because a lot of games that have bidding mechanisms don't really go well on their first play for most people because they don't know the value of anything. I think that it's probably best with 3 or 4 players on a small map because people are constantly hitting each other and there's a lot of combat and a lot of, craziness going on. Your turns are really fast and furious. If you play on a bigger map, then you have to spend more time moving, or which is, it could be cool because maybe if there's a lot of ranged combat going on, that's a neat positioning thing where you don't want to be in certain lines of other players to get shot at. So there's a lot of cool things with the map layout, but I do think that the small, tighter maps are actually better. Simply, especially with more players. If you're playing with less players, maybe you can get away with being a bigger map and trying to do more range combat and stuff. But I don't know. I think that it's a little bit, you don't want it to overstay its welcome. And since everybody can literally go down to 1 health and then one person dies, it could be, not that it would happen that way because, you don't know people's health, but if people are kind of keeping track to how much damage they did on each other player, they can spread it out evenly. And I think that it can drag the game out a little bit. So playing on a smaller map speeds that up. And for the type of game it is, I would rather play it quicker and want more than to play it one time for an hour and a half and not be that, interested to play it again. If you've never played miniature combat games, this does remind me of a game called Arena Rex. Now, Arena Rex is a hobby miniature game where you fight in an arena, and it has this exact thing going where you're constantly doing abilities to push people into walls and into like spiked wall traps and stuff. And I absolutely love that. I love the positioning and the movement of throwing people into things, and especially into other players. That Arena Rex as a board game is what this game is. Although Arena Rex is a better game overall. I really like that game. The combat is fantastic, and the way you draw lines on your player board to do damage and stuff like that. Not draw lines, but it's kind of like a talent tree, and you roll dice and get successes, and you go the path you want to do damage and push people. And this is just a faster board game like version of it. I don't think they had anything to do with each other. I don't really see that it was super inspired by one another or anything like that, but it is interesting as a miniature game player to see that there's a board game kinda that resembles Arena Rex, and super cool. I really like it. The only negative things I can really say is, one, the stun markers are annoying. The things I was saying, when you get hit and you get exhaustion tokens or stun, whatever they're called, they minus the pool that you have of dice to use. And that's kind of annoying because you can get hit and literally lose half your die pool for the next turn. And typically if they're hitting you with that, they're also doing some other damage. So it's kind of a double whammy. Some abilities only do stun tokens instead of damage. So I don't know if they're that great to, if it's not doing damage, is it a good card to pick? Cause stunning somebody does nothing, right? Except maybe stop them from hitting you. So I guess that's that. On top of that, if you have less dice, or even if you have a full amount and you roll really bad, that's another thing about the bidding process, is you want to bid on cards to have a diversity of ways you can spin the dice, and not just like all of the same symbol or 2 symbols, because now you've neglected 2 of the other symbols, and that's like 50% of the dice, right? So you want to draft in the drafting phase a lot of diversity in cards, even though you have those basic abilities you can use. You're not always pairing things up. So getting an ability that uses a sword and a shield, for instance, is really nice in case you end up with only 1 sword and 1 shield. That's essentially an ability instead of needing 2 of each symbol. But you can have turns where you roll and you just roll really poor and you don't get the stuff you need. You did get 1 re-roll when you roll the dice though. And maybe you have an ability that allows you to roll again. But it is really bad to have a turn where you get hit a few times with exhaustion. You start your turn, you roll, you're poor, you roll it again, you don't get anything, and you move 1 space and maybe hit somebody once and you're done. It's just really annoying to be in that situation, I guess. Especially with a game that promotes rolling dice and using all these abilities. Now in your turn, you didn't do anything, and it wasn't your fault. It's just because you rolled poorly. So that can turn some people off, but the games are really fast. So I don't really see it being a massive problem. The last thing I'll say about the game is I wish there was some more terrain features. The only thing you really have is like spiky little pit traps you can walk on, the spiky columns that are blocking terrain, but you can be pushed into them, and the little potion things that you step on and it heals you once up to 5 times. And I don't know, there'd just be cooler if there was more things out there that you could use, to, maybe even, I don't know, like if the map was big enough, you can have like half walls that maybe you can't cross, but you can shoot over or something. There's all kinds of things. I'm not trying to make up things for the game. I'm sure there's tons of variants on BGG and stuff that do this, but I just wish that it had a little bit more terrain features. Overall, I'm going to recommend this game if you like free-for-all games. I mean, obviously, team versus team is also nice in this game, too. I've never played the all versus one, so I'm sure that's probably fun. I don't think I would even try it because that doesn't interest me any. Maybe one day, but I didn't need to play that to do the review. It's a variant anyway, and it's not one. I don't usually play a lot of variants before I review the base of the game, like the way it's intended to be played. So, that would be an interesting thing. The teams is really cool. I think teams are always good. If you don't like free-for-all combat games, like if this was a last man standing, I would absolutely probably be like, I'd rather play at teams. But considering what I said earlier about having one person die and then the game ends, it is really cool. I really like it. This is, honestly, for me, I liked it better than Ultimate Warriors. Even though I do like Ultimate Warriors, a lot of people compare this to King of Tokyo. Sure, it's like King of Tokyo, but more combat and some movement and things. I don't think they replace each other. I think you can own both of these. They are drastically different in my eyes. They're just using a Yahtzee mechanism. I would compare it more to Ultimate Warriors if I was going to go that route. And I like that one best. King of Tokyo, I think, is probably still a better game, but it really just depends on what type of game you like. I don't mind certain conflict. If it's going to have direct conflict, the whole game needs to be kind of around it. And that's what this does. And I'm okay with it. If it was like just random that, take that and things like that, I'm not into, but good game. I like it. That is, Arena for the Gods. Next up on this episode, we're talking about Cascadia. This is published by Flatout Games in 2021. The designer is Randy Flynn and the artist is Brett Sobel. It's for 1 to 5 players, takes between 30 and 45 minutes, and the tagline is, create the most harmonious ecosystem as you puzzle together habitats and wildlife. And that really is what you're doing. So if you're familiar with games like the game Calico, this is pretty much a follow-up to it, and this game is very reminiscent of that, but it does play a little bit differently, at least in strategy and thought. You have a starting tile that's basically a cluster of 3 hexagons attached together, and these will represent different terrain environments, like marshland or forest or desert or mountains. And much like Carcassonne or any tile laying game, these tiles can fit together to where like 2 terrain features are touching each other. And that's half of the game, is making contiguous areas of habitats in order to score points. The other half of that is these little round tokens that represent animals. There's 5 different animals in the game, and those will score differently each game because there's multiple copies of each animal. So like bears, for instance, I think there's like 4 or 5 cards that you can shuffle and pick out one, and that's how bears are going to score this turn. Maybe they have to be in clusters or straight lines, or maybe they have to be in contiguous area, or if they're next to pairs of other animals and things like that. That's how all 5 of the animals are going to work. You're going to have 5 cards out. That's how the tokens work. Now, on your turn, the way the game works, though, you're going to have a row of tiles that you will draft, but on the tile, there will also be a token, or not on it, but next to it. And so when you take that tile, you must take the token that's next to it as well. That token doesn't have to go on the tile that you're placing, but you can put it on any of your tiles in your tableau as long as that animal shows up on it, because every tile in your tableau will have between 1 and 3 animal symbols that says this animal can live here. And some of them only have 1 animal, which is much harder to get a token for, but it has a little pine cone on it. And when you do that, you get a nature token, and you can use it. It has like special powers, but basically one of the biggest ones is you can spend it to take a tile and a token of your choice, whatever combination. It doesn't have to be the tile that's with that token or whatever. So if you want that tile, but you don't want the token and you want this other token, you can spend a nature token to do so. I think the other one is you can spend it to clear the tiles or something, not the tiles, but the tokens or whatever. In addition to that, the tokens, if there's ever 3 or more of them, I believe you have the choice to clear them and bring more out. Or if there's ever 4 or more, I think those automatically will clear and new ones will come out. There can't be all of the same animal essentially to pick from, but not trying to tell you all the rules, just kind of putting it out there. Once all the tiles have been placed from the bag, the game will end, and then you're going to get points for all those different scoring mechanisms for the 5 animal types. You're going to get points for having contiguous areas of habitats, plus a bonus for being the person who has the most like desert tiles together or the most forest, etc. And whoever has the most points wins. So we have talked about Cascadia or Calico on the podcast before, not that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 episodes. And I will say that I like Calico a lot. I think Calico is probably a more thinkier game than this one. And this is more of a familiar game. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, this game is really, really good. I was floored by how good it is in comparison to Calico. And I don't want to keep comparing them, but I believe they were like directly like the follow up to Calico type of, PR announcement and stuff. I like both of them. I think both of them are great. I think both of them are super easy. You draft a tile, you place it. In this one, you draft a tile and a token and you place them. It's really about trying to figure out what you need to do and where you're going to put stuff and how you're going to make the most points for your money, basically, right? In Calico, it's a little bit more stressful because you will freak out because maybe this tile that you need, there's only a couple of copies of each one. I think there's 2 actually. If it doesn't come out or somebody else takes them, you're screwed. You can't complete what you're trying to do. In this one, it's not that bad. It is more like, just like Calico, you have to kind of wait till your turn or the turn before to kind of plan what you're going to do on this turn. Because maybe the thing you want it, if you're like, I need that bear token. Well, yeah, if you're playing a 4-player game or whatever, 3 other players can have the opportunity to take that tile that has that token. And then you're like, oh, now what am I going to do? So both games kind of have that little problem, which, I mean, at this point, it's a lot of games that do the same thing. So it's not that big of a deal. But I like the fact that you don't have to plan on getting that token right now. You could just get that tile and that's fine. And you'll get that token later and you'll place it there instead of, and you have a lot of opportunities to try to get the tokens you need. It's much easier to focus on all 5 animal types than I would have thought it to be. You kind of do typically let 1 or 2 of them slide as far as scoring off of them because you're focused on a lot going on and maybe somebody's grabbing all the salmon right now. So you're not really going to do a lot with salmon or fish or whatever they're called. I was calling them salmon. Yeah, they are salmon. So that's kind of neat that it's not as stressful, but it's still as puzzly. You have all this cool stuff going on. You have to kind of look at the 5 scoring cards and see, how am I going to lay this out to get the most points? But everybody's doing that. So I don't know. Really, really cool game. Man, I actually probably would buy both of these. I think I would play Cascadia more than Calico I don't know. It's a really good game. It just depends on who you're playing it with. Some people I think will like this better than Calico because it is a little bit more forgiving, but still strategically, viable, right? You're thinking of all these things and how you can set this puzzle in motion, because if you put all your salmon here, then you're going to block it off from your hawks being able to see each other, because there's one of these hawk cards that they draw like a line between 2 hawks, and for every unique animal in between it, you'll get points. So you don't want to draw like a salmon, that just takes up all those spaces between them, because then you're just going to get 1 point. You want multiple animals to be between them. Stuff like that. Really cool game. I actually really, really like it. Interestingly enough, if we look it up right now, Cascadia has an 8.1. I'm not entirely sure if Cascadia has hit everyone's hands physically. We did play this digitally, so on Tabletop Simulator. Calico has a 7.9 with 5.7K ratings, and Cascadia has a 8.1 with 1K ratings. They are very close. I think it's, for the most part, going to go with Cascadia. And I think you're going to see this one probably be in a lot of award stuff, if people still remember it, when they start doing the 2021 awards things. It definitely deserves it. It's a very good game. Check it out, Cascadia. And the last game we're talking about on this episode of the podcast is Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. Monsters fight back to take their homelands from the oppressive Valeria Kingdom. This is for 1 to 5 players. Takes between, it says 30 and 75 minutes. I'd say it's pretty accurate, like an hour. And it's by Daily Magic Games. Designer is Stan Kordonsky. The artist is Mihajo, I don't know how to pronounce it. Dimistrovsky. And a lot of people like this artist. So they're going to know how to pronounce his name better than I do. I'm not very good at pronouncing names and stuff. So my apologies. Anyway, I'm not going to go over the game rules for this game, but I will kind of give you an idea. This is becoming a very popular game. So if you want the full rules and things like that, there's plenty of things out there, plenty of content, creators who've done rules overlays and everything. Easiest thing to say is it's a dice. It's a worker placement game with dice, but you're actually collecting those dice and using a token that you place down for your character to actually gain access to whatever the worker placement thing is. So there's 5 parts to the board. There's one section, and you have to have a die in that area before you can put your guy down. If you place it in one section, you're going to get 2 magic points. You have a grid on your player board that goes all the way up to 20, but it is blocked off, so you can only go to 13 at first. And this will track your magic points, your gold, and your influence, which you'll need to complete battle plans and such. But when you go to get a die, you're going to look at the die, and it's going to have a strength number for it, which you're going to use to complete battle plans. And you're going to have a little number beside it that's used based on what area of the board it's on. We'll talk about that individually. So one spot, you're going to get magic, or you can complete one of the achievements out there. Just like any other game, first to do this, first to do that, gets to put a token on this thing and complete it and get points. And there's multiple people that can do each of these achievements. There's a second space you can go to that's going to give you a discount on buying, or you get to buy a card with a discount. That discount is actually on that die. That's what that small little circle is. So the lower the power strength of the die is, the more discount it's going to give you in these spots. So there's a row that says $1, $3, $6 or gold, and you will pay that much for that card. There's 3 cards for each of these up. So the one is like instance. When you grab that card, you get what it says. Like maybe you get these 2 points, or you get 2 magic, or this one gives you a gem or whatever. And then there's another one that will give you a perpetual ability each turn, or when something happens, you gain extra money, things like that. The third row will give you in-game scoring abilities, and you will probably collect those later on in the game, but those are $6 or more. Each time you buy one of these cards, it's also more expensive. So the more of each type you have, the more money you have to spend on another one of that type. So if you have an in-game scoring for 6 and you buy another one, it's 6 plus 1 coin for every in-game scoring you already have. So it ends up being 7, then 8, then 9, etc. You can only hold 3 cards though at the beginning, but you can unlock, I think, 6 and 9 cards or something, by removing these tokens, which we'll talk about. So the other 3 areas, one area on the worker placement board will give you gold based on that little number. It's kind of confusing because at one point it's a discount, one point it gives you money. And then there's another space that you can go to and reserve one of the battle plans. This is how you're going to make most of your points in the game. You need dice to complete these battle plans. But you need to go here to get one. But we don't have to, but it's worth going there because once you reserve a battle plan, it will go on a reserve slot on your board. And that's the only time you can activate the ability on that reserve slot. Like the basic one that's already open is you can spend a gold coin to upgrade your influence. And lastly, you can go to a spot on the board that will give you a gem. There's only so many of those available in the game based on the player count. And you can only ever have one unless you open up the spot that allows you to have 2 more. Anyway, the last thing you can do is actually go to your player board and complete a battle plan that you already have, or choose one on the row and complete it too by paying for it or whatever. But when you complete a battle plan, you need the dice types that the battle plan requires. So if the dice types for one battle plan is a green, a blue, and a gray, then you have to have those 3 dice types in order to do it. It doesn't so much matter about the strength. You're going to complete the card, but the strength added up on the dice. So say you had a 5 and a 2 and a 1, that is 8 points. And so you get to go on this grid, and it says if you spin between this and this and this and this and this and this, you're going to get more and more points based on the strength of the dice. So if you have a bunch of 6s, it's going to give you a lot of points. However, it's only up to the maximum of your influence. If your influence is, 12, then you can only score, I believe it was like 8 points or something, or 6 points. I think it was 6. And because it's like, if you're under 7 points, it's 1. If you're between, I can't read this. I had my screenshots and I don't think I got close enough, but basically, you're limited on how many points you can make off the strength of your dice, unless you actually increase your influence to allows you to utilize your maximum strength on your dice. Anyway, once you do complete a battle plan though, you get to take the token off your board on any of these locked spaces. There's ones that will lock extra dice that you can hold, because once you get these dice, they go in like little holding areas, and you only have 3 of those available, but you can get up to 4 and 5. You can increase you can take the token off your track so that your gold and your influence and your magic can actually go above 13. There's one that you can remove to get extra gems, spaces available. There's one that you can remove that will allow you to take your colored dice. So say you're the green player, then all your green dice, only once per battle plan, can be switched to any color you want. So they're kind of like a rainbow in a way. You can get more cards. You can get new spaces for reserving your battle plans that give you different abilities and such. So a lot of cool stuff you can do. Once you do remove that token though, you're going to put it on your, like, there's this little board and it has like a 3x3 grid of abilities, or not abilities, but scoring methods. So if you put that thing down on that board, maybe it says you get 1 point in addition to your, spending your strength and stuff for this battle plan for every green dice you had to spend, or for every, if you had more than 15 strength for this card to complete it, then you get 2 extra points. Or if it was a type of card, like a range type of card or a melee or a siege, then you can put a token there and say like it's a siege card, you can put a token over it and get 2 points. Now, the reason you're also doing that is because if you complete 2 of these things next to each other, you get what's in the middle. So like on this card, if you complete a siege, excuse me, if you complete a siege, then you will get 2 points. But if you complete like a 15 plus power, you get 2 points, but the chain between them gives you 3 gold. And you want these chains because it gives you more stuff throughout the game, for points, or, maybe you'll get cards for free from the display, or you'll get to raise your influence and things like that. There's also an achievement that it has a pattern on it. And if you complete a pattern, like maybe a plus sign or maybe like a Z shape on your scoring board, then you get to go, take the worker placement action to actually complete that achievement. That's pretty much all I'm going to talk about. That's the general overview of the game. Once the dice kind of go down, there's like 3 or 4 left. You get to put more dice out, and you keep going until somebody has completed 7 of their cards, and then the game ends. So I will say this. I have said it before on shows, on reviews. Sorry. I'm not a big fan of games ending whenever somebody completes so many of a card, simply because it just makes it to where you can almost watch what people are doing. If they're going for really heavy hitting point cards, then you can just get really cheap cards and finish the game quicker than what they can do and typically win the game. I'm not saying that's a problem here, but I have seen it where it makes more sense, especially because the battle plans themselves aren't worth points, right? It's about what strength you spend. So if you spend 3 dice to complete yours and get 6 points, I complete mine with 2 dice and get 6 points. Why would you ever go after anything besides the 2 dice thing? Because it's so much faster. And on top of that, not only are you doing that, you're also getting unlocks quicker than other players. And it's like a waterfall type of snowball effect on yourself to get more and more powerful. It would take a lot of plays to really see if that bothered me that much. But as of right now, I can totally see that being a problem, at least with a bunch of newer players, and not playing it a ton of times, right? So that concerns me. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather like even just have like, a scoring thing. Once somebody hits 50 points or whatever, the game ends. I'd much rather see something like that than to just whoever completes this many cards, the game triggers the end game. So meh on that. But overall, the game, I do like what you're doing. Your turns are super quick. Grab this. I'm going to go here, grab this die, put on my thing. I'm going to go here, grab this thing, buy this card. I mean, your turns are very quick. It's annoying to watch so many players between you play, especially the fact that this goes up to 5, even though there's more dice out and everything. But if you really need a green die and they know that, and they're just going to take that dice, right? So it's cool that it has the ability to be able to change your colored die into any color. That's pretty neat. You don't always have to get 6s, even though it's really nice. 6s aren't the end all be all, which I think is really nice, really cool about the game, because if you can only go to max strength 13, you need a 5 and a 6 to do that. If you don't really care and you just want to complete something, you could just get 2 1s, but get like the discount at its max on the card that you're buying, or maybe the gold that you're gaining and stuff. Really cool on that aspect. It kind of gets annoying whenever the dice gets slimmer and slimmer, because now some of the action spaces that you need to do don't have dice on them, and there's no way to do it without a die. That can be annoying. Or if, for instance, that happens and you already max on dice, when you get a new die, you have to pluck one of your other die off, or, don't take the one you just gathered, and that's hindering. So that can be annoying, but maybe that just means you didn't plan efficiently, I guess. Some of it is luck, though, based on the dice that were rolled. There's a bunch of low numbers and a bunch of high numbers, and some of the high numbers are on spaces where it doesn't matter. Like a 6 on the area that allows you to complete an achievement or get 2 magic points. It doesn't matter. I'd rather it be a 6, because that's the best number there. Whereas if it's on the spot where it's going to give you discount or give you money, if you want the discount to be high, the strength is going to be low. And when you get that, now you have a really crappy die. It's okay, though. It's not like it's going to end the game for me in my mind, like, oh, that's mathematically good or whatever. I'm not trying to say that, but I think some of the achievements are a little bit quicker to get than others. There's one that's about the gems, and the first player to get 3 of them gets 9 points, and it's really a lot of points, and it doesn't seem that hard to get 3 gems, because people aren't going to get gems and just hoard them. It's not, you can only hold 1 or 3. And even though they're limited in your game, it's likely that you could just go on with your daily business, and then when it is somebody else's player's turn, they complete something, they're going to spend those gems. Because I did forget to mention, the gems have powers too, where you can either flip a die, which I guess does kind of change a little bit of what I was saying with the getting low numbers. You can flip a die on its, flip it over from whatever number it is to the opposite end. So a 1 can become a 6. Or you can actually change a die to whatever color you want. If you needed a green to complete this card and it's a gray, you could just spend a gem to do that. Gems are hard to get, though, just because they're limited. I don't know. I think maybe to completely review this, I'm going to have to play it a bunch of times. And thankfully, it has some gameplay elements and the whole idea of what's going on where I'd be okay with playing it a bunch. I think this one is pretty good. I do look forward to playing this again. On this podcast, we don't play games to death to review them. It's more like first impressions anyway. But most of the games we do play multiple times, and so it is more like a review. This one, I think that it might take me a few more plays. It's got a lot of love. I mean, this thing is really making a splash, and I think it's for good reason. It is definitely a lighter game. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of things to think about, but you could play this with pretty much, I wouldn't say it's a gateway game, but you could play it with those type of people, I think. They might be a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of strategy and what should I do first and what order should I do things in, but the gameplay and the rules are pretty light. I think that's fantastic. I like games that have really effective rule sets that aren't, convoluted, and this is great. So I really like all the Valeria games I have played so far. And this is just another one in the batch that I like. So it'd be cool to see the longevity of it. I think it's going to stay around for a while, but I think that it's not really doing the player board with unlocking all the different spaces and stuff is fantastic. I love that. The idea of everything else going on doesn't seem super new, but it's a cool combination in its own spin on it. And I think it's gonna last for a while. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying it out more, and maybe we'll report back on it later on, maybe after a year or so. Anyway, good game. Check it out. If you like the Valeria games, I can't see why you wouldn't like this one, or at least tolerate it to the point where you're like, that's all right. I don't think you're going to hate it. So that is Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. And with that, we are at the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it with my single voice again. And I promise we'll have more people on there soon. I've got some interviews lining up too, so that should be cool. Watch out for that. Anyway, want to thank you again for tuning in to this episode 137 of the MeepleCore Gaming Podcast. This episode was recorded on August 20th, 2021. Please send your questions and comments to MeepleCore@gmail.com. Follow MeepleCore on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and check out the video versions of the show. Until next time, this is Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple. Keep on rocking and rolling dice.